Before the discovery of coal, Larkhall was a rural area characterised by its isolation and small villages, such as Millhew. The economy was primarily agricultural, and the community was relatively cut off from the rest of the country. Life revolved around traditional rural activities, and there was limited economic development or population growth. However, with the discovery of coal, Larkhall underwent a significant transformation. The mining industry boomed, bringing an influx of workers and rapid urbanisation. The once predominantly rural landscape became dotted with collieries and mining settlements. The economy shifted from agriculture to mining, providing employment opportunities and attracting people from various parts of the country. This led to a substantial increase in population and brought about considerable changes in the social and economic fabric of Larkhall and the surrounding areas. East of Larkhall, the terrain slopes towards the River Clyde, while to the west it descends towards the River Avon. Just beyond the ancient village of Millhew, which has its roots in the Dark Ages, lies the renowned beauty spot of Morgan Glen. Overlooking this glen, on the slopes, until recently stood the imposing Broomhill House. On the outskirts of Larkhall stands the ruin of the once grand Broomhill House, built by the powerful Hamilton family in the 1560s. The scant remains of Broomhill House now stand as a sad reminder of centuries of history and heritage, its presence once looming large over the surrounding landscape. During its time, the house underwent various transformations and reconstructions, yet its significance remains undiminished. Situated on the slopes above Morgan Glen, the house enjoyed a commanding view of the scenic landscape. The house itself suffered severe damage from a fire in 1943, marking a tragic chapter in its long history. Despite efforts to preserve and restore it, the fire left the once stately mansion in ruins, forever altering its appearance and significance. Surrounded by sprawling grounds and verdant gardens, Broomhill once exuded an aura of tranquility and serenity, offering the Hamiltons sanctuary from the bustling world beyond its gates. The Hamiltons held a significant presence in the area for generations, their influence deeply rooted in the local landscape and community. Known for their military prowess and political alliances, they played crucial roles in shaping Scotland's destiny. Over time, they acquired vast estates, including Broomhill House in Larkhall, showcasing their wealth and influence. Throughout the 19th century, the MacNeil Hamiltons, a branch of the family, resided in Broomhill, overseeing vast landholdings and village properties. Their influence extended beyond mere land ownership, as they wielded considerable power within the community, exemplified by Captain Henry Montgomery MacNeil Hamilton. Captain MacNeil Hamilton, born in 1872, inherited the estate at a tender age following his father's passing in 1883. His upbringing was steeped in military tradition, and he pursued a career in the military, eventually rising to the rank of captain in the Cameronians. Despite his prestigious lineage and military achievements, his personal life was marred by marital discord. Rumours of affairs plagued the couple and eventually led to a separation from his wife, Edith Gertrude Thomson Carmichael, in 1910. The Hamilton legacy goes beyond mere historical records. For locals, the mention of Broomhill House evokes tales of the supernatural, particularly the legend of the Lady of Larkhall. Stories of sightings and encounters with this ghost have pervaded the local folklore, adding another worldly mystique to the already storied history of the Hamiltons of Larkhall. Before divorcing, Captain McNeill Hamilton and his wife had 4 children, 1 son and 3 daughters. Their marriage was fraught with unhappiness. While serving in South Africa during the Second Boer War, he met and would become romantically involved with Sita, the woman who would go on to be known as the Lady of Larkhall. As the captain was already in an unhappy marriage, Sita was brought to Broomhill House as his mistress, though under the guise of a servant. There's no doubt this led to the separation of the captain and Edith in 1910, and despite his personal issues, McNeill Hamilton continued to live in the house until his passing in 1924. Due to the racial prejudices of the time, Sita's life wasn't a happy one, and she rarely ventured beyond the house's boundaries. She'd often be found walking the woods surrounding the house on her own and appearing unhappy. Then one day, she was gone. A local resident, Mrs. Perry, remembered seeing Sita at 10 p.m. one night, following the evening meal. The next day, Sita was nowhere to be seen. Asking around, Mrs. Perry was told that Sita had been unhappy and left. This seemed strange for Mrs. Perry, as the last train from Larkhall was at 9 p.m, and no one had seen Sita walk the considerable distance to the train station. Since then, Broomhill House has become entwined with the Lady of Larkhall legend, with sightings and stories firmly embedded in the area's folklore. For one local resident, the legend may well have become a reality. For privacy reasons, I've changed the names, but for Katriona MacDonald, there was an added familial link to this enduring tale. Katriona often pondered why her grandmother, Morag Turnbull, remained so attached to Broomhill House, continuing to visit even at the age of 82 in 1939. Morag began working at Broomhill at the age of 12 and stayed until the onset of the Second World War, rising from maid to housekeeper. During the 1920s and 30s, when the McNeill Hamilton family wasn't residing there, the house was primarily under the care of caretakers, affording Morag the liberty to come and go. The house temporarily served as army accommodation during the war and suffered significant damage from a fire in 1943. In 1954, the family sold the remaining land and property to Mrs. Euphemia Hamilton. Morag was known for her stories about the Lady of Larkhall, which she passed on to her son and in turn to her granddaughter, Katriona. As a result, Katriona, like many Larkhill residents, grew up hearing about the lady. However, her connection to the legend would become far more personal than she'd anticipated. Around 6 years ago, in her late 30s, Katriona started having a recurring dream. Initially, she didn't associate it with the Lady of Larkhall, despite being familiar with the stories. The dream, which started as vague and unclear, became more vivid over time. In it she found herself, or someone who looked like an older version of her, in a room with an ornate fireplace, a clock and a candlestick. The room had green curtains, a piano and a fire screen with a red rose. To her left stood a tall, striking Asian woman, and to her right was a man with an aristocratic look and piercing eyes. The dream then showed a man's hand wearing a gold ring with a black stone, lifting a candlestick and striking the woman on the head. The woman fell, and her body was dragged through the house, across a black and white marble floor, and down a staircase into a cellar. Despite the presence of blood, the body remained just inside the door. Katriona experienced more dreams that seemed to occur in different parts of the same house. One depicted a nursery with a young, deformed boy in a broken rocking horse, where the woman tried to comfort the child. Another dream showed hooded figures performing a ritual in a cellar or vault. Troubled by the vividness of these dreams, Katriona couldn't help but wonder if the woman might be connected to the legend of the Lady of Larkhall. Morag was known as a practical woman, and not prone to inventing stories, especially in an area rich with folklore. She claimed not only to have seen the ghost of the lady, but to have interacted with the woman herself during her time at Broomhill. Given her grandmother's credibility, Katriona felt compelled to investigate. According to Morag, the lady was from India and lived at Broomhill for about 2 years around the turn of the century. One evening, she left unexpectedly, supposedly returning to India due to unhappiness, likely exasperated by the racial prejudices of the time. Morag found it strange that there was no trace of her departure, especially as she would have had to have travelled a considerable distance to Larkhall's East Station. Katriona's research led her to explore the history of the lady. Ignoring the ghostly tales, she delved into the records in London, Edinburgh and local archives, as well as in the South African Records Office and British military records. She identified the lady as Sita, born in Ceylon around 1862. Sita, likely from a high caste background, had moved to South Africa and later worked in the British Army camps. She may have met Captain Henry McNeill Hamilton there and accompanied him to Scotland in 1902, disguised as a servant or nanny for his children. In September 1989, Katriona organised an overnight stay at Broomhill House. She and 7 women gathered round a fire in the old kitchen. One of the women, Vari, needed to find a private outdoor spot, and Katriona with a torch took her to a secluded area behind the house, known as the Lady of Larkhall's Walk. Katriona later recounted what happened. "I was holding the light when I heard movement behind me. At first I thought it was one of the other girls, but then I felt something was off. A terrible cold clung to me, followed by a strong smell of spices like a bad perfume. A female form passed by my left side, and I felt frightened but not threatened, and overwhelmingly sad." Vari asked me to shine the torch, and there was someone standing beside her, with that smell. I shone the torch and saw a shadow on the back wall, moving like someone on a casual walk. I was about 38, the same age Sita would have been when she first came to Scotland. A retired journalist from Cambuslang, researching the town's history, contacted Katriona with surprising news. Years ago, an Asian woman had disappeared from the Buchanan estate in Cambuslang. The woman, linked to McNeill Hamilton's circle, had travelled to Scotland with Sita. Intrigued, Katriona enlisted the help of the Scottish Society for Psychical Research to investigate Broomhill. 3 clairvoyants, unfamiliar with the lore, each sensed an eerie atmosphere. One detected dark energies, another sensed witchcraft, and one felt a pervasive presence of fire, indicating multiple bodies buried in the cellar. One of the clairvoyants described a vivid scene they had picked up on. Though the gatehouse no longer existed, the iron gates remained, and she heard approaching carriages. She saw a fair-haired woman, similar to McNeill Hamilton's wife, distressed and clutching her chest. A man lay beside the avenue, seemingly struck by a passing horse, while children played croquet nearby. The clairvoyant noted a resemblance between Katriona and a woman walking beside her, suggesting a connection. She told Katriona, "There's a woman walking beside you. She's so like you. You're a double." Katriona replied, "If it's who I think it is, she had a distinguishing mark." The clairvoyant then touched her forehead with 3 fingers. Katriona's grandmother had a permanent mark on her forehead from a fall down the steps at Broomhill. The clairvoyant then went on to describe an Asian woman in pain, possibly linked to a violent birth, and advised finding a stone to locate an entrance and a family Bible for a message. In 1954, while Broomhill was still standing, Jenny MacLeod and her friends spent a night there as a dare. While there, someone threw a firecracker which scared them, and Jenny, trapped inside, had to escape through a window. As she fled, she came face to face with a tall woman of Asian descent, almost running straight into her. Jenny noted that the woman had an almost overpowering musky scent, and soon she found herself overwhelmed with a sense of dread. Jenny fled and later, urged by her grandmother, returned to Broomhill. There she saw the Lady of Larkhall again. Standing beside the Lady of Larkhall, she counted an incredible 13 more ghosts. That was too much for Jenny, and she ran away again, never to return. For 40 years, Jenny kept silent until Katriona's articles brought the story to life. McNeill Hamilton died in 1924, and by 1937 all valuables were removed from Broomhill. The house by that point had been left to deteriorate, and after the 1943 fire it became semi-derelict and was sold in 1954 to Euphemia Hamilton. Since then it's been abandoned and fallen into ruin. By the 1960s, the house's most resilient feature was its reputation. A film crew from the BBC's Tonight programme, headed by well-known reporter Fife Robertson, was allowed into the cellars to attempt a live exorcism for the Tonight programme. Although they captured no evidence of the paranormal, despite the fine weather on the day of filming, incredibly the cameras, all of them, were found to have completely frozen over. And then tragically, after filming finished, the director of the programme was killed in a road crash on his way to another location. The impact of the crash threw him from his vehicle, and he was found with a fence post impaled in his heart. It was clear the attempted exorcism had failed. Wild tales soon circulated about the vindictive nature of the Lady of Larkhall. A stone lintel weighing several hundredweight was carried by 5 men from the ruins to be used in the nearby Applebank Inn, and was apparently found the next morning as if it had been hurled from the pub into the middle of the road. Bottles are said to have exploded in front of shocked patrons, and glasses have flown from shelves, causing regulars to duck out the way, save being hit. It's also said that people passing by the building late at night have heard banging noises coming from within. A local ghost hunter alleged that his back was broken by the lintel, and in May 1995 he claimed the Lady of Larkhall, resenting his meddling, attempted to harm him with a mysterious virus. However, these sensational accounts contrast sharply with the descriptions provided by others who've encountered the ghost, describing her as more sorrowful and non-threatening. Members from both sides of Katriona's family had worked at Broomhill. In the 1861 census, she even found a maid named Katriona MacDonald, who was married to a man named James, the same name as her own husband. If the dream that motivated Katriona's research into the haunting held any meaning, perhaps her grandmother, the older me as she described it, was trying to communicate something. It seems unlikely that a woman who'd served the house so faithfully for many years wouldn't have known if anything suspicious had occurred. While researching another topic for a Heritage Society meeting, Katriona stumbled upon a photograph of the Central Station opening in Larkhall in 1905. In the photo was the man from her dream, with piercing eyes. It was Captain Henry McNeill Hamilton, who'd sold some of his land to the Caledonian Railway Company and was the guest of honour at the ceremony. The captain's estate owned most of the land and houses in Larkhall, and some of the pits in the area also. When McNeill Hamilton married in 1896, it was one of the biggest society weddings in Lanarkshire, reported in local papers and the Glasgow Herald. Bonfires were lit on Tinto and at Broomhill, and some of the great border families, including the Holmes and the Douglases, were represented. The captain's battalion band played on the lawn. The honeymoon on the Riviera, gold, diamonds, and other jewels were among the sumptuous wedding presents. But contrast that with when he died. His obituary was a mere 11 words long, and the funeral procession consisted of the hearse and one other car behind it. He was buried with his father in Larkhall Cemetery, but whereas the father's name is on the grave, his son's is not. Something had happened between the wedding and the funeral, more than just the separation, to make McNeill Hamilton a shunned figure in Lanarkshire society. An elderly man who had once been an apprentice to the local undertaker shared with Katriona. One evening we received a call informing us that the laird had died, and we were instructed to bring a coffin to the house immediately. The boss planned to take him away and prepare him, but the laird's son insisted we handle everything there and seal the coffin on the spot. When we went upstairs to the laird's room, the stench was overwhelming, even with the window open. It took me months to regain my appetite. Regardless of what McNeill Hamilton had done or had been accused of during his life, he died a sad and lonely death at 52. Did Katriona's mother witness anything during her time there as a servant? She never spoke of it, but perhaps she felt the need to communicate in death, visiting Katriona in her dreams. It's unlikely she noticed nothing, given that servants often had deep insights into their employers' lives. At Broomhill, like many large estates, servants were privy to many secrets. The captain's brothers also had their own scandals. One was a known kleptomaniac, never prosecuted due to his family name. The other was reputedly homosexual, and due to the scandal vanished, reportedly to South Africa, never to return. Some say McNeill Hamilton was a perfect gentleman, but in Larkhall many thought otherwise. An old miner recalled climbing the wall at Broomhill as a boy, only to have the laird whip his hands, severing 3 fingers. A woman remembered pushing her children out the way when the laird rode by on his black horse, whip in hand, as he never stopped for anyone. Another woman who worked as a maid at Broomhill recounted how the maids invited their boyfriends into the kitchen while the laird was away. They stole some of his liquor, watered down the rest, and were having a great time until the laird returned unexpectedly. He was furious, grabbing one man by the neck and throwing him out, and attacking another lad near the cellar. His rage was terrifying. He seemed to lose all control. Interestingly, the current owner of Broomhill, who has left the land mostly untouched since buying it in 1954, denied any validity to the Lady of Larkhall stories. Despite allowing TV crews to film in the cellars in the 1960s, she later denied the existence of any cellars at Broomhill. When Katriona's research started appearing in the local paper and renewed interest in the ruins, bulldozers were sent to fill in the cellar and destroy the remaining stonework above the ground. It seemed an odd response for a place supposedly devoid of mystery or sinister secrets. As the stories of Broomhill House continue to spread, they serve as a powerful reminder of the weight of history and the mysteries it can leave behind. Whether driven by curiosity, a thirst for the unknown, or a quest for the truth, those who explore the secrets of the Lady of Larkhall and the mysterious past of McNeill Hamilton find themselves immersed in a collection of tales, both eerie and captivating. While physical evidence may have disappeared, the legends endure, preserving the past in the minds of those who dare to recall. Only time will tell if the echoes of the past conceal deeper truths, or if they'll fade away, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and the remnants of a forgotten era. What happened to Sita? Did she return home, or did she meet a dreadful end at the hands of someone she trusted? and someone she travelled across the world to be with. Is it possible that the series of dreadful events that befell those who were later involved in this tale was a result of the anger felt by Sita, somehow cursing the building she was so unhappy in? Whatever the truth, I hope she's now moved on and found the happiness she was so lacking in life.